Yo, yo, yo! What is going on, everybody?
How are you today, Al? How's life going?
Life is going fantastic. Welcome, family, to a new international comics collective, the comic book industry podcast. And man, do we have one in for you today. Me and my man Dave's there chilling. Chris is chilling. You guys doing well and keeping well across the seas?
Mm-hmm.
As you noticed earlier, yes, I'm in need of a haircut. I may be taking the garden shears to my head when we finish this podcast.
I took the clippers to my sides, and then my wife goes up and sees me in the bathroom. And I'm like, babe, I need you to get me the back. Like, what the hell did you do? I'm like, please, there's the opportunity now to cut my hair.
See, when you take a razor, you don't need anything else, and you never go back.
Exactly. Look at Chris, the smartest man in the room, the most low maintenance hairstyle in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mr. Consistent.
It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, man. So I know this week, hopefully, Chris is gonna have one of those awesome new articles up on Comic Crusaders. But you know, and you know how well researched those articles are. They're fantastic. It is Comic Books 101, 201, 301. I mean, the stuff you write, Chris, is like university in Comic Crusaders land. It's amazing.
Thank you.
And with that, you know, you came up with a pretty good topic to discuss today, actually, as well, where we're talking about those generational changes in comics, those creators that made that impact, and not just the creators, but you know, editorial staff, you know, people behind the scenes. So you know, that's definitely a wonderful topic. So, Chris, I open the floor to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we already talked a little bit briefly before the live cast. We are all comic book fans, and we look at these creators, and everybody knows names like Neil Adams, Danny O'Neill. I'm working on this longer piece about Green Lantern, so now it's the time for Danny O'Neill and Neil Adams to talk about those issues. And what I've noticed, and I've noticed in the past, but I've most strongly noticed now with this time change that came about in the late 60s, when a younger generation of creators came in, that we look at these artists and we admire their art, we like the writing, or we can say, oh, this holds up pretty well, it doesn't hold up pretty well. But what we hardly ever talk about, or we talk about Marvel versus DC, but what we never really talk about is the struggle that goes on inside a company. If you look at DC Comics in the late 60s, who was in charge? The guys who were in charge were Mort Weisinger, who came from the pulps originally. He was an agent originally for writers. He had a company with Julius Schwartz, and Weisinger left Schwartz to work for DC, what was National Comics DC, in 41. Schwartz, who wanted to stick onto the pulps, realized the pulps were dying and followed Weisinger to DC. But you also had other editors who also came from the pulps. You mostly had writers who came from the pulps. These guys were all born 1915, 1910. And when you look at 68, you know how old these guys were at that time. And you had all these young guys coming in. And one of my favorite stories I discovered when I was doing research was, we all talk about Neil Adams on Batman. Oh, that was the bomb. That was fantastic. You know what happened when Neil Adams came to DC? Julius Schwartz looked at his work and said, you want to draw Batman? There's the door. He sent him packing.
No, why? Because it was bad?
Yeah, that was not the house style. That was not the house style.
Oh my God.
Carmen and Fantina was the guy. And you know Neil, he said, okay, that guy doesn't like me. There is this other guy, Murray Boltinoff. He's doing the Brave and Bold, and that has Batman too. And he went to Murray Boltinoff and said, look here, this is my Batman. And he said, great. Here's Jerry Lewis. Draw Jerry Lewis. It was only when Mort Weisinger, who had the most sway because he was the most senior among them, who said, okay, I want you to do an issue of the World Finest. And Adam said, oh, cool, that's Batman. It has Batman on it. And he did Batman. And Bob Haney, who was 10 years younger than most of the other writers there at that time, said, well, I want to change the direction of my book. I want to go away from this funny stuff. And Ross Andrew is fine, but this Adams guy, he looks neat. Can we not have him on the book? And that was the issue when he combined Batman with Deadman.
Okay.
And slowly, the resistance was whittled away because he said, oh, this looks kind of cool. And at the same time, we had Danny O'Neill coming in, and he came in because he was fired at Marvel. He went to Charlton Comics, and at Charlton Comics, Dick Giordano was the big editor. And Carmine Infantino was made the new executive vice president, whatever he was, what the exact title was, and he said, we need to get these young guys in. The old guys are not cutting it anymore. If I get Dick Giordano, I get all these new writers.
Okay.
And he brought all these new writers in. And the editors, the older editors, didn't know what to do with them. And one of the first things Danny O'Neill was assigned to was to go to Jack Miller. Jack Miller was the big romance comic book editor.
Okay.
And where was Wonder Woman? She was under Jack Miller because it was a woman book. And Danny O'Neill said, well, I have an idea, we can change this book up. And that started the whole business of him starting to re-adapt these characters. He then went on to do Challenges of the Unknown, where he nearly killed off the leader and replaced him with a hit woman. So we have all this change coming in. I find this very interesting.
So when that change began to happen within those circles, I mean, what was the initial reaction? I mean, nowadays we still have problems with people doing that. Apparently, or creators have those issues. I mean, I could imagine then when it was really like. Well,
you had also the older generation that was at war with itself, because as I already wrote in my previous column, we had this interesting thing happening that was Green Lantern in issue 49. John Broome was a couple of years younger than Gardner Fox. He said, well, basically, I get this vibe. The kids don't like this industrial militaristic hero anymore. And I revealed that Carol Ferris two-timed him, and this will be a shock to his system, and he will become a searcher. He created that. And then when Broome, who was smoking a bit, was not on the level anymore, Gardner Fox came in, and he said, I don't like this. I will make him a nice guy again, have a nice girlfriend, rich girl again. And then Danny O'Neill was still kicking around, and he said, oh, I talked to Broome, he didn't like that. And immediately when O'Neill came on for one issue, that was 63, long before his run, he said, well, that girl is also two-timing Hal, bye-bye.
Poor Hal.
And so you had all this infighting among the writers. And today we say, I had a discussion on Twitter also about this. Oh no, they were all friends, they liked each other. Well, this is where friendship ends, because you have creative people, each one is jockeying for their position, for their vision, for the character. And you have all these strange swirls. When you read this Green Lantern one, you see all this tug of war for directions. Then Mike Friedrich came in, who was 20 years younger than Broome. He's the first baby boomer who comes into DC, and he's 43. He's even younger than Roy Thomas. And he says, well, basically, how about I do this in the book now, which is completely the opposite of what the other writers were doing. So you had all these people coming in, fighting with the older guys, and I find this vastly interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's been going, like, I mean, that circle, that sort of cycle of change has been speeding up. So it was before it was almost a generational change. Now it's kind of like, have we finished the month yet? Oh, maybe it's every writer wants to put their stamp on a character, and what they like or don't like either stays or gets jettisoned, and they build on that, and you end up with a lot of frustrated fans, because they might like, there's always a group that likes the changes and there's always a group that don't like the changes. And the bigger the change, usually the larger amount of people you tend to piss off.
Yeah, this is always the tagline. Nothing will be the same anymore. And then the next writer comes in and he says, well, basically, Bobby Ewing was never killed. Here he is under the shower. And the same time, Danny O'Neill's Wonder Woman run, it was all retcon, basically. And we always have this, that they can come in and say, oh, no, that never really happened. Now the new writer, he's telling the real story. I find this very interesting. It's quite fascinating.
It's a hilarious process and creativity, within a publisher when they got to have the inner turmoil between creators. It's insane.
And it's interesting how this influences even team lineups, because what happened in Justice League around the early 70s numbers, Wonder Woman was off the team because Danny O'Neill had ruined the character. She was not a superhero anymore.
Well, that's the one that Diana Prince time. She was like an agent.
Exactly. And what happened at the same time? Black Canary made the move from Earth 2 to Earth 1.
Yeah.
And that was basically Danny O'Neill's in with Julius Schwartz, because that was the first time he worked with Schwartz, and Schwartz said, well, basically you ruined my Wonder Woman character for Justice League. And he said, well, here's another lady I can bring in. How about the Black Canary? And Julius, who was always interested in ladies, he said, that's a cool idea. Maybe you should write a little bit on that book. And what is also interesting, I mean, going back even further, when Justice League starts, if you look at the first issue of Justice League, what do you notice? Superman and Batman have no time. They say, oh yeah, we are busy at the moment. You guys, Flash and Wonder Woman, you sort that stuff out. And you see a shot of their clubhouse, and there's 7 chairs, and there's only 5 heroes. Why? Because Mort Weisinger didn't like that Schwartz was using Superman, and Jack Schiff, who was editing Batman, didn't like that he was using Batman. So for the first couple of issues of Justice League, you have very little of Superman and Batman, because these guys said, no, this is my character. You are not going to use Superman in your team book.
Yeah, that's hysterical. I'm looking at the cover now and say, nowhere to be found. And who the hell is Wonder Woman staring at? Or just the 2 empty chairs? Like, where's the rest of the Trinity?
That's really fascinating.
It is.
Yeah, editors being proprietary about their characters, I think, still extends to today.
Absolutely.
Group editors, yeah. Although one of my favorite runs of Justice League didn't have Superman and Batman start in it anyway. So,
which version is that?
the Keith Giffen, Jan DeMatteis version with.
That was good stuff. Absolutely.
That was such a breakout book.
See, you're killing me here, because now you got me so interested in looking. When was the first time that both Batman and Superman made a cover appearance? Even I've seen up to issue 8, and I still don't see them.
you see them in the issues.
Yeah, but not on the cover.
It's always with a panel where they say, "Oh no, we are busy right now. We are part of the team, and we would love to be here, but we have to take care of this rock from
Your
space or whatever.
problems are beneath us, guys.
Forget that Starro guy who can take over the world. I have to do this thing here now. And
I don't need space fish.
Lois needs me.
Yeah, exactly. But the irony is, of course, as most people know who looked into this, Jack Schiff was eventually fired and replaced by Julius Schwartz, which is also interesting, because Jack Schiff had messed Batman up, because we had all these characters coming in, Batwoman and Batgirl, the original Batgirl, and Batman in Space, and Robin Dies at Dawn, all those issues, and Batman was tanking at the sales. As I had a nice discussion also on Instagram, because our episode really resonated with fans, and when I mentioned that Lois Lane sold more comic books than Spider-Man, or if she was on place 4, people said, well, how can that be? Yeah, because that book sold. There was a lot of female readers, not only female readers, but a lot of girls were reading comic books. And in 69, Archie was the best-selling book of the year. That is kind of amazing. But also then you had Superman. Superboy was also selling more issues than Spider-Man. Well, if you look at, quite fascinating.
Well, if you look at that shot that I used for the ad on the corner box there, you'll see that it's a girl reading comic books. And that's I think that photograph's actually from the 50s.
Yeah, but on the other hand, what you also see on this little corner box is you see an African-American kid reading comics. And that's also an interesting story with that, because if you look at Green Lantern 76, the famous issue, you all know this, was the 3 panels by Neil Adams where this black guy shuffles into the picture and says, oh, I hear you did a lot for the green skins and for the blue skins. What have you ever done for the black skins? That is right around the time when Kirby came back to DC, and we know this is online. he was preparing a book, completely new romance book, completely with black characters. Yeah. And he had Vince Coletta and Tony DeZuniga inking the whole thing. And DC rejected the book.
Of course.
And it's really amazing, because the question Danny O'Neil is really asking, what has DC ever done for black characters? They had the first black supporting character in our Army at War in '61, but nothing after that for a while.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, what was their first black character? Was even Black Lightning, Black superhero?
Yeah.
That was already in the '70s. They waited that long.
Yeah, but at Skyworld, you had Gary Friedrich creating the first black superheroine, the Butterfly, in '71. And on the second issue, you had Rich Buckler co-plotting and doing the art. And we all know where that went when he went to Marvel later, after he first went to DC. And he did Jungle Action with Don McGregor, the seminal run on Black Panther. Very interesting.
And and Don has stories. The professor from No Prize Podcast from our network got to talk to him at a restaurant. They hung out. Basically had a comic book date night. You know, my podcast legend. And basically he just put the recorder down and just asked Don questions. And boy, Don has no filter, very real. And the things that he was going to try over at Marvel at the time, I mean, silly things. He kept pushing the barrier, and he kept getting gates closed on him. He was like, "What the hell?" You know. I mean, even at a point when there was the Ku Klux Klan versus Black Panther versus the Ku Klux Klan. You know, the type of story, and they said, "Well, why did you make all these white people, you know, the Ku Klux Klan?" Well, you want the white people in the book. I'll put your white people in the book. He kind of says it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing. I told you about the Butterfly, which was in a magazine put out by Skyworld. If for those people who don't know this, Phil Brodsky, who was the production manager at Marvel, he got fed up with Marvel, and there was an investor called Israel Waldman. He said, "Well, so how about we start a magazine, or a line of magazines like Warren does?" And they did all these kinds of magazines, and they did a magazine called Hellrider in '71. And in this magazine, Gary Friedrich created the first black African-American superhero, Butterfly. In the second issue, Rich Buckler came in, and who was she fighting? The Ku Klux Klan. And the leader of the Ku Klux Klan was revealed as a U.S. senator. That was in '71. That was long before McGregor ever did the storyline.
Yeah. And I'm also looking, because I remember Jack Kirby had created the Black Racer, and we look at the Black Racer now. He's, you know,
he also put a black supporting. He put a black character in Forever People as well, and later in Mr. America.
Yep. He tried good at doing things. Again, all the people that try to take some initiative. Although they, you know, when you had mentioned this guy Neil Adams earlier, and Kirby, you know, obviously you mentioned him, because I mean, what's a podcast when you couldn't talk about those type of legends? But I remember when I met Neil Adams, I was with a friend of mine, 13th Crusader, which is going to be guesting on CDC's 100th episode later on. And he asked, it was Jack Kirby's 100th birthday around that time. And he goes to Neil Adams, and we were taking voice clips from creators. So he, my friend, puts on the recorder and just asks, you know, what did you think of Jack Kirby? You know, and Neil Adams picks up a head, looks at my friend. I fucking hated his art. I was like, oh, gee, thanks. Let me stop this recording right now. What is wrong with people? So, in your research, did you see if there was any animosity between Kirby and Adams at the time?
I think that, I don't know if there was, because I don't think they really crossed paths, but what I think what you had is an animosity between Schwartz and Kirby, because if you look at the time when Kirby was, when Schwartz was getting ready his revamp of the superheroes, we know Showcase #4, The Flash, the rebirth of the superheroes. What was #6 of Showcase? Challenges of the Unknown. And Challenges of the Unknown, if you look at the makeup of the book, is very much a 1940s book. It is basically the old 1940s superhero cradle. 4 people meet by chance, they are in an accident, and now we live on borrowed time, we should use whatever we can do for the benefit of mankind. For the benefit of mankind was the cradle in the 1940s. That was not what Hal Jordan did or the Flash did. They did this because they were heroes before, And they were really these Kennedy men who was really these clean heroes. And you look at the art of Carmine Infantino and Jill Kane, or Infantino and Kirby were friends. But you look at Kirby's art for Challenges of the Unknown. This is a very old concept. And I'm very sure Schwartz didn't like the competition coming there. And Kirby had a big in with Jack Schiff, who was the Batman editor, and they were working on lots of projects together. And then you had a problem between Kirby and Jack Schiff, because there was an agent coming to Jack Schiff who said, well, basically, I'm looking for a guy who syndicates newspaper strips for an artist, for a creative team, and we want to have this science fiction type of thing, but that's more or less the idea. And Jack Schiff, who liked Jack Kirby, said, well, basically, yeah, I got this guy, Jack Kirby here, and he can do this. And later they got into a fight, Jack Kirby and Jack Schiff, because Jack Schiff said, well, basically, I recommended you, and I'm entitled to royalties till this thing finishes. And Kirby said, well, basically, that was a one-time referral, and here's some money, but that's about it. I'm paying Valley Wood, who does the inking, from my money, so the strip looks good. And Schiff wanted money all the time. And then they drew up a contract, and they couldn't agree on what is the royalty terms, net or gross, from the sales, and they sued each other.
Right.
And all Jack Schiff needed to do was to pick up the phone to phone Irving Dornenfeld, who was the son of Harry Dornenfeld, who had died, who was the biggest boss at DC, and said, well, this Kirby guy here, he's suing me, and Kirby was gone from DC, and he went to Marvel. And at Marvel, he showed Jack an issue of the Challenges of the Unknown and said, well, basically, here's your comic book. Here's your new superhero team. And Jack said, oh, my wife suggested this idea. Put a woman on the team, and we have the Fantastic Four. That's basically what Stan did, if you look at the Challenges of the Unknown.
Yeah, true. And I'm looking to Julius Schwartz. If it wasn't for him and his actions, we would not have had a Batman.
That's
so
true.
They're talking that by 64, sales was so bad. Bob Kane had told her, they were going to plan to kill Batman altogether.
Yeah, Irving Dornenfeld fired Jack Schiff, and he said to Schwartz, 6 months or Batman is dead. You have 6 months.
Insane. But that complete overhaul, basically everything. The yellow bat insignia, Batwoman, exactly. Ace, Batmite, on Harriet.
No, that was gone at that time. Because basically, and Harriet was brought in because of the TV show, more or less.
You
had the Batmite and all that stuff was gone. That was Jack Schiff. And if you look at the Carmine Infantino era, that's the mod Batman. That's the cool Batman, and that was when the TV show happened. Because what was originally happened was that the network, they wanted Superman first, and the Superman rights were tied up. And then they wanted Dick Tracy, and the Dick Tracy rights were tied up. And they said, okay, what else is there? We can do Batman. And then they did Batman, and Batman shot to the #1 on the sales list for 2 years. And then the title dropped again.
Yep, exactly. Because here, Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams are apparently making the deliberate effort to distance the book from the show. It's like, okay, you got this campy character here, but, he's more badass in the books,
Yeah, but that was later.
Yeah, they did that after the show finished.
Exactly after the show. That was came after
in '69. Yep.
Mm-hmm. The sales. I mean, the sales didn't stick around once the TV show had gone. It literally just went straight back where it was.
Exactly, and it dropped at 68 already because the viewers were already gone before the show got cancelled because the third season had really no budget.
Yeah, they went all grim on him. Again, back in the 70s, The Secret of the Waiting Graves. And those were the true collaborations between O'Neil, Adams, Schwartz, and Giordano. Wow. Look at the legends all lined up on one book. Jesus.
It wasn't the first collaboration between O'Neil and Adams, though, because they worked on X-Men before that.
Of course. I mean, wow. But nothing held.
I thought Tom Palmer worked on the X-Men.
No, Denny O'Neil wrote one issue with Adams together. I don't know if they ever talked to each other at that time, but during the Roy Thomas run.
Yeah.
See, Thomas, there goes a guy. I mean, if I look back at my comics and when I started, and I look who was in charge, Roy Thomas. Like,
I still want to do an Avengers column series about the Roy Thomas years and the Don Heck years with Stan Lee, because that's such a cool stuff. I really love those Avengers issues.
Well, I mean, Roy Thomas pretty much ran Marvel for so many years, while Stan was writing so many comics and out promoting them.
When he was posted on couches half naked, you mean?
Yep. Oh, takes a lot of time and effort to do that.
Yeah, but Roy, I see that his effect on me because I'm looking back in my history collecting, like, wow, Roy's the man. Thank you, Roy.
I have a little satirical sketch in my new column about Stan, and I think it's very close to the truth.
I think there's, I think there's a lot of people who tend to sort of want to be able to say, this is Stan, this is Jack, or Stan didn't do anything, or Jack's trying to take credit for what Stan did. And I think I know, like, from Stan's mindset, I mean, he was an editor first. And he definitely had some good ideas about which directions things should go in. I mean, I personally would probably give him a lot of the credit for threading all those earlier books together to create more of a continuity between the books.
Okay.
While Jack and Steve Ditko were busy, like, just getting the stories done.
I think what Stan was brilliant at is, if you look at the older ECs and you look at the letter columns, that's more or less the voice Bill Gaines developed to talk to the readers.
Yeah.
And Stan picked up on that. And he, face forward, true believer and all that shit. It was really resonating with readers.
Oh yeah, no, I think that the letters column, it's always seemed that years later people forgot what letters pages were actually there for. It was almost as though no one could be bothered to do them anymore. But it was, it showed the fans that, hey, you're listening. I sent you my letter, you read it and you printed it and you gave a response to it. There's nothing better for letting the fans know that you're paying attention and you're listening to them. And also, it's also a great way of using it as a message board.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this issue of Challenges of the Unknown, when Daniel Neal came on board and he introduced Corinna as the new leading lady of the team. In the same issue, you have a letter from Irving Donenfeld, the big honcho of DC, or besides us, the editors, but it's Irving Donenfeld, who said, well, we have to raise the price by 3 pennies. And here's why we need to do this. And he goes into this long explanation where he says all the paper prices got more expensive and this and that. And I like that. I mean, it's explain. You still get a price raise from 12 cents to 15 cents, but here's the guy who takes the time out and says, well, we're not going to slap on a higher price sticker on the book. We explain to the readers why this is. And we still hope you still put your trust in us, that we put best stories out, that we justify the increase and so on. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying what Jack Schiff's done here. Just looking, co-creating the original Starman with artist Jack Burnley. Let's see, he started in 42, overseeing Batman and Superman comic titles.
He started when Mort came over. Around that time.
And I see in 58 the dispute between Kirby and him over the Sky Masters newspaper comic strip, and Schiff won. Crazy.
And still Kirby was fired. Because Kirby had to pay him outstanding royalties, even though that was not the original agreement according to Kirby. And still they fired him from DC. I mean, it's quite amazing.
I mean, he also created Lady Blackhawk, which is pretty cool. Co-created. But I see that he was removed as an editor due to low sales, and that's when the new guy, Julius, came in 64. Yep.
And Carmen Infantino, a lot of people forget Carmen Infantino was the biggest artist at DC, even when Adams came in, because all the covers were designed by Carmen Infantino.
Yep, I had the opportunity to meet him, I guess, a couple of months before he passed, when I was still in New York.
Very cool.
I think it was in New York. Yeah, we were at a small local show, and me and my friend were walking, and I'm talking, and all of a sudden, my boy disappears. I've been talking for myself, God knows how long. So I start looking for my friend. I see him on the line. He's waving. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, don't you see who this is? And I see it, Carmine Infantino. I mean, already older gentleman, just hunted, but he's just there doing his thing. Was drawing something, but my boy just wanted an autograph and bought a book. He's a really sweet dude, man. And then just a couple of months later, the legend passed.
Cool.
You know what? I mean,
did you have experiences, Dave, with Infantino?
No, I mean, I met him twice, I think. Just briefly, once at DC and once at a comic convention. I mean, as a fan, when the original Star Wars comic came out, I loved his run on Star Wars. They were great. I look back and I look at his version of Batman. Those were fun. I remember growing up with those books as a kid. Yeah. Those were really fun. I mean, they may not hold up for me personally now, but at the time I loved them. They were great. They were really just fun, good stories. I think
go ahead.
No, I mean, his work on Flash, his Star-Lord even.
Oh my God, yeah, Star-Lord,
yeah,
fantastic stuff.
I would like stuff like that.
That's also. I mean, this is also, we talked about the generational change, but what's the generational change of readers? When I came in, and the first time I read, when I was 11, 12, or 13, the first time I saw Carmine Infantino was on the Flash, when he was doing the Flash in the 80s. And I said, well, this looks ugly. This looks ugly. Like this very sleek. Of Novik, who was doing this great art, and then we had this ugly art by Carmine Infantino. And now we said, oh, Carmine Infantino, great artist. I said, well, it looks like shit. And later, I discovered his work from the 50s when he originated the new Flash. And this art is so fantastic. I mean, his early stuff is really incredible.
That first showcase story, I think, was inked by Joe Kubert.
Exactly.
Yes. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Especially with that big old approved by the Comics Code Authority stamp that you see on the corner. It's giant. God.
Yeah, but that was the time they were doing, and Joe Kane doing Green Lantern. That was also fantastic looking.
When he did this though with Julius, I mean, did he have editorial power then, and he was just an artist at the time, Carmine? Because again, he also did the Flash of Two Worlds, so he introduced Earth 2. You know what I mean? He worked on Adam Strange, Mystery in Space. I mean, dude.
Here's the interesting thing. The guy who edited Showcase was the former. He was Sheldon Meyer, and he was the guy stranded at DC Comics because he was basically not doing much because he was kind of pissed because what had happened, he came in when MC Gaines, his father, Max Gaines, he created All American Publishing with money from Irving Donenfeld, and he was running All American Publishing, and Gaines was bought out by Harry Donenfeld, and he left his editor at DC. He said, well, see you later. I'm doing a new company, and you're not part of this new company. And so he was doing basically very little. And he had these two guys who were really editing the books, and they were Julius Schwartz and Jack Schiff. And Jack Schiff was editing the Challenges of the Unknown issues. At the same time, Julius Schwartz was editing The Flash. Isn't that crazy? Wow. It's quite amazing.
Wow. That is amazing. Again, that was an error of people that took chances, but it's what you're finding that kills me in the article. It's just the tension you find out. I mean, I want to see these things in a TV show or something, like these type of stories.
There's my favorite story. I already told you that story, which is so fantastic, because I only found this out recently. Because if you look at the famous drug issues in Green Lantern, and in issue, 86, I believe, there is this big, we have a letter from Mayor Lindsay, and he is approving this book. And what you have, if you look at this letter, really, when I looked at this letter, is he's not really talking to anybody. He's not talking to Julius Schwartz. He's not talking to the fans. He's responding to a letter that came from a PR company. And this PR company, PR something, asked, more or less, we don't have the original letter, we only have his answer. Wouldn't it be nice to use comic books as propaganda again? We can put actual message in those. Wouldn't you like that? And the mayor responded, hey, that's a cool idea. We have this thing about drugs. Why don't you put that message into your books? And that was the big letter from the mayor. This letter was sent to a guy called Mark Iglesias. And he was more or less an executive of this PR company. When you look at the address of the PR company, you notice one thing. That was the same address of DC Comics at that time.
Oh, no.
What it was a PR company that belonged to Kinney National, which later became Warner Brothers, and they had bought DC Comics. And then if you look at the cover to Green Lantern 84, you see a picture of a guy. I was actually used a photograph of a guy. Yeah. That's the same guy.
Oh, really?
In a story about mind-washing people via television and other media, he used this guy, his picture and his likeness in the comic. How do you like that?
Oh, it's brilliant.
Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Wow. Awesome. You see, you know how they have that show Dark Side of the Ring? I want to see the dark side of comics. Come on. Come on, folks.
But see, I think like Neil probably could get away with that because no one else knew what this guy looked like. So he was probably it just got through and no one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, we're not in an age, we're not in a social media age then. So
exactly. It's probably Julia Schwartz, oh, it's a picture of my neighbor or something. You said, okay, you can put that guy on the cover. Who cares?
Exactly. Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's a nobody. It's in my wallet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I find this very subversive, and this is the kind of stuff I really enjoy discovering. It's really it's Hollywood Babylon with comic books, and I really like this. This is really interesting.
No, so I was just going to say, sorry, Steve. So, Chris, your comment earlier about Neil Adams and Jack Kirby, I was just going to, as far as I know, as far as I'm aware, they were actually, maybe friends might be too big a word, but they certainly very much respected each other. Neil's the sort of person who he may have seen himself, particularly when he was younger, saw him as the new face of comics. And saw Jack as, thanks for your help getting us to this point. I'll take over here. And I know that, but you know, Neil was also one of those guys that was instrumental in helping Jack later on, just in the same way as he did so much. I mean, considering the amount of work he did for DC, he stepped up to the plate when Siegel and Schuster needed help.
Exactly. That was when the movie came out, and Jenny Kane was the new big honcho, and he really was instrumental in them getting a stipend.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and I think we've talked about before how like you know, Jeanette Kahn, I think, was the last real, probably the best boss that DC have had for a long time.
Yeah, and she was. I think she also brought Karen Berger in, or she gave Karen Berger power to create this Vertigo line and have all these guys coming in, Neil Gaiman, who was that guy, Grant Morrison, all these guys coming in from England, and amazing times.
Once I think I'm pretty sure it was Len Wein who was responsible for Alan Moore coming into DC, and once. Like that had taken over, there was that sort of, oh, who else can we use over there? That's why, I mean, I remember being in London and like at comic conventions here, DC would come over and we'd all get taken out for dinner or drinks by DC. They'd have a big party and invite all the creators, and you know, they would cherry pick which ones they wanted to work on their books, which is why you did see so many books, particularly at Vertigo, by so many British creators. It was almost that Vertigo was almost created for British creators.
Yeah, it was. Come on, don't lie.
Yeah, I mean,
it really was.
Yeah,
you had great guys coming in, and that was when the medium was writer-driven, and you had all these exciting new voices coming in.
Well, they were really the second wave of British creators. The first wave, if you look at people like Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons, even people like Kevin O'Neill to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
They all wanted to work. They were still at that period in their lives when, oh, I get to do a Batman story. Wow, I get to, I've always loved Green Lantern, or I've always loved Flash, and I want to do that story. And, you had Dave Gibbons doing sort of, backup Green Lantern stories and things like that, where it's like, oh, I've got my, they quickly got to get that fix of, oh, yeah, I've done my Batman story now. I've done this, I've done that. Now let's do something different and new.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people forget that, you look at Alan Moore's output, but you don't forget he was a comic fan. Like, he loved comics. Like, that's why he got into the business. He loved all those stories.
He loved.
Yeah. And I think that, Alan Moore wasn't, I don't think, Alan was looking to change the industry in different ways. I think he was looking for the creators to get more power, to more strength, to editorial, to listen to creators more. But he wasn't intending that everybody starts doing grim and gritty comics and leave everything behind. But it was just,
what happened?
People just follow success, Yeah.
Swamp Thing is actually a very positive book if you think about it. Because he basically recreated the character in a more positive way.
Right, but it was nice to see. It was unfortunately last week we lost Martin Pascoe, passed away.
Yeah, my gosh,
great writer. I love his Superman run.
But his Swamp Thing was a very good, very strong book, and Alan did what he decided, I'm going to come on and turn it on its head. But don't forget, it was the last issue that Martin Pascoe wrote, was the issue that Steve Bissett and John Tottleman came on to start drawing. It was
issue 20.
Yeah, they didn't start on Alan Moore's. They didn't start with Alan Moore. They were already on the book.
And Alan Moore more or less did a refined version of what he had done with Marvel Man.
Yeah.
And I want to mention something, because I keep looking at that awesome Fantastic Four image behind Dave. And, and we were talking about a legend in Neil Adams. Did you hear that he's finally going to draw a full-length Fantastic Four comic for Marvel, along with Mark Waid, called Antithesis?
Okay, he's... yeah. Sorry, Neil, if you're watching this. Like, I love your art, man, but
Don't color it. Don't color it.
No, or write it even. So.
Well, Mark is a writer for sure, but he's going to illustrate only on this. I mean, the cover image looks nice. He's always been a great cover image artist, and I had someone complain. What was it, Batman's Graves, when he came back to do a Batman's book? Was it Batman's Graves?
No, it was Odyssey. It was Odyssey. The Odyssey. That was really horrible.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I look. I would certainly not be upset if Marvel reached back out to John Byrne and asked him to come back and do the FF for a year or two.
Oh, definitely.
That would be sweet. That's another creator. He was a game changer. Lived long on runs. I mean, where is he now? Is he even doing anything?
He's doing Star Trek photo comics.
Is he still? I don't think he's even doing those anymore. Is he?
Is he not?
I mean,
he did them for years.
Maybe you could quickly Google it. But as far as I know, I've seen a few interviews with him recently. But
I'm looking and I don't see anything lately.
I mean, if you want to compare output, then Byrne is the only one who can rival Kirby.
Yeah.
He was drawing, inking, writing several books a month. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was doing West Coast Avengers and Fantastic Four at the same time.
Exactly, and they're both great with runs. I like his run on West Coast Avengers.
It was good.
Oh man, this is hilarious, because when it comes to Byrne, there's a comment where it says that Gail Simone, who worked with Byrne on the all-new Atom in 2006, I remember that one, right? Described Byrne as very opinionated. A lot of artists are opinionated, and I'm actually okay with that. I think John Byrne is brilliant, and his forceful personality is part of that. Have you ever met John?
No, I haven't actually.
I'm wondering now.
He's one of the guys. I always want to, and despite the controversy around him, I'd still like to meet him because I totally respect the work he's done, and I think people's art changes, and sometimes it gets stronger, sometimes it doesn't. But as I said, it's like, look, you put John Byrne on, the Fantastic Four or Avengers again, and get someone like Jerry Ordway to ink him again.
That whole Avengers West Coast run was dope, man. I remember I had it completely.
Oh, it was
the mini, and then the rest of the whole run. I was like, it was great stuff. And then we had the sensational She-Hulk years from him as well, which really put her in the spotlight. Really in a really good way. That Namor run was great from the Marvel era as well. The Iron Man during his issues were pretty cool. The ones by Romita Jr. when he was up and coming there. Star Brand, if you remember that offshoot from the New Universe. But now Star Brand is proper part of the Marvel U, if you will.
Yeah, Hickman brought him back. Brought him back some years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was through Hickman. In a very modern take, but it's nice to see something survive. They did try to bring that whole universe, and that's something another time in comic history where Marvel really wanted to try something new and completely like no one appreciated. Although I did appreciate Strike Force Morituri.
That was great. But that
I loved.
But that wasn't part of the new universe. That wasn't part of
that was part of the new universe. Yes.
No, I don't think it was. I think it was a completely
Strike Force DP7.
No, Strike Force Morituri was a separate standalone book that
I think Dave is right. That was not
set in the future. It's a sci-fi book set in the future.
Not part of the original pitch because it doesn't fit in.
It doesn't fit in with anything. But it was great. It was like, I think Brent Anderson was the artist on it. Great artist.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's not part of that, but it was released around that era.
Yeah.
It was the tail end of the shooter years.
We Who Are About to Die. I love it. But then Rob Liefeld tried to rip it off with his book and image. Was it Bloodstrike or something? Didn't quite work out.
Well, let's be honest. With probably the exception of Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane, almost every book that Image published when they broke away was just a copy of something from Marvel.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I'm glad you guys remember Strike Force fondly.
Oh yeah.
Not many people, they look at me like, "What, Strike Force? What?"
I don't see why they can't collect things like those.
I agree.
Like, why isn't there a trade out? Because and I think it went on long enough. You could probably get like 2 or 3 trades out of it.
My God, they've gone up to 8 generations of this already, with the last mention being in 2014.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, very cool. Yeah.
Get Brent Anderson to do a new story.
And they kind of changed them now. And apparently, that they kind of use something like power batteries, or what like appears to be. Oh my God. They changed the Strike Force guys into Green Lanterns now.
Lanterns, yeah.
Strike Force Lanterns. Here we are.
Well, the Warp Smiths in Marvel Man were pretty much Green Lanterns.
Oh yes, yes. They were.
Which also is a concept they stole from a pulp novel or from pulp novels, because basically the idea was this is basically very much based on the Lensman series, which is the same idea that you have a police force out in space and a generational thing, and you pass it on to the next generation. And as it always goes, John Broome said, "I never read those books." Of course not.
No, but he probably read the back covers to enough of them.
You have a guy on one of those covers who looks like Hal Jordan in a silver outfit, but it's basically he looks like Hal Jordan.
Yeah, so they just looked at the covers. I mean, it's funny actually mentioning the pulps. That kind of there's a great story I read about Jack Kirby where, because his output was so strong, like sometimes he would like get down to his drawing board in the morning, and like he would have to think of something like very quickly. So he had all these science fiction novels behind him, and he would just literally reach back, take a book at random, open it, and start reading it until something in it connected a story, and then he would just put the book back and then just go from there.
Yeah, a lot of the IC stories are based on that, because there was this thing that Bill Gates couldn't sleep at night because he was taking all these diet pills and they wouldn't let him sleep. And so he read a lot during the night, and every day he came to the office and said to Alphage, "Oh, I have this great idea. Here, make a story out of this." And that was when Ray Bradbury sent them a letter and said, "Oh, you used 2 of my stories, basically.
Oh,
Where's my check? Did it get lost in the mail?"
That is hysterical. Hey man, you might have a different creative process to get over stumbles, right?
Well, I think it's it's been constant. Like everyone either, I remember when it used to be that every writer I knew subscribed to Scientific American. So literally, like everyone would be pitching you these similar stories, and they're like, "Oh, you read the same article in Scientific American like 2 months ago."
Now everybody just watches that alien show. For ideas.
Yeah.
The Anunnaki and
yeah.
Although I'm not a writer on that level by any means, but when I watch that show, I mean, I do picture a shit of stuff in my head, like, yo, this would be a pretty good story, if I could just put it together. So I get it.
There's a lot of recycling going on, because I talked about the time when Rich Buckler came to DC in the 70s. Well, Robert Kanigher had created a new heroine. Basically, they used an old name, Rosalind Thorne. There was a Rosalind Thorne in the 40s who actually married Alan Scott before he married the Harlequin, who I wrote about in my most recent column. And what Kanigher did with the Rosalind Thorne character is basically that's Danny O'Neill's Wonder Woman, but with a psychological twist. It's so interesting. So interesting.
No, that was a cool idea. In many respects, I suppose it's kind of, there's threads of that story you could say would follow through into Harlequin herself when she got created as like someone with psychological issues.
No, that's I was talking about a different Harlequin. There was a Harlequin.
I meant I was referring more to Rosalind Thorne. So there's that passage.
Oh, that's also true. That's also true. Yeah.
And then there was also Mike Vosberg's. I say I'm giving him sole credit because I can't remember the writer. His Starfire book. Before the Starfire, we know who joined
the real Starfire. Well, the real Starfire, please stand up.
Yeah.
The original one, the original miniseries, the series they had, the fantasy series.
That's right.
That's a great series. And I think that also lifted a little bit from Fred Sliber there.
But see, so much gets lifted, so much gets inspired by something else, and I think if you just going all the way back, if you look at things like if you look at Superman for a start, Superman, you can clearly see the Edgar Rice Burroughs influences in it's almost like John Carter going the opposite way, instead of going from Earth to Mars, going from Mars to Earth. But then Edgar Rice Burroughs took that certain concepts and ideas of the Superman from Philip Wiley and from his Gladiator novel, and which also Superman is heavily borrowed from. And it was almost as though over the years they also took more. So it was like the fact that Superman was so smart, like that's straight out Doc Savage.
Doc Savage, man, what a great character.
But if you look at one of the very few superheroes who were created in the 50s, Captain Comet, nobody really knows him. He was brought back in the 70s. If you go to his origin story, That is the Gladiator book. Only instead of his father injecting him with a serum, it's a comet that passes over their house, and he's the first mutant. But other than that, it's the Gladiator book, which I find so interesting.
I love Captain Comet, man. Totally underrated character, dude. Totally underrated.
Well, I think the big difference in Gladiator is that, you know, like Superman, Gladiator, Hugo Danner has a scientist father. But in Gladiator, the scientist father is literally experimenting on his unborn son, like injecting his mother with something that when he's born has
which he already knows is not the best thing in the world, because the cat he injected it with went crazy.
Yeah.
That's funny. I don't know if you say that, you know, story reuses. That reminds me of a recent Marvel comic book with Iron Man, where apparently the father was experimenting with him in the books, you know, and this is why Tony winds up needing a suit, really, because it kind of affects his bloodstream and whatever, kind of weird stuff. But that's some of those type of experiments.
but see, that's what you get when you have a character who's 50 years old, and it's like you're running out of like stories. It's like it's become dull, and you know, neither Marvel or DC have learnt or have the ability to create stories that catch on. And it's these these legacy characters that they've had the sales, and they've got the outside, you know, awareness. Like, if you create a new character, you're going to introduce that character not into a character that knows your symbol everywhere. Like, I'm pretty sure by now more people in the world know the Batman symbol and the Superman symbol over the Mickey Mouse ears now. You know, I think that's shifted. It used to be Mickey Mouse's ears was probably the biggest, most recognizable symbol in the world. But I think now it's like the Superman S and the Batman symbol.
Yeah, and McDonald's too in the States.
Yeah, yeah. And if you create something new, but you don't have that catchment pool anymore. So you release the book, and it may be the first issue sells maybe 80,000-90,000. How's that going to break out? How's that going to break out into the world unless you stick with it long enough to start putting that character into cartoon shows and films and TV shows right away? And I think that's probably the future for Marvel and possibly DC, is when they create new characters, they create them and they're basically already working on a film with them in. I think introduce the comic.
I think so far the only character who has ever had his own agent, fictional character, is Superman. Because when Superman really took off, Harry Donenfeld hired an agent, and he was completely the agent of Superman, and he got all these deals going with all the trademarking and everything. Great. And this is a brilliant move. I mean, that really put Superman on the map.
Well, maybe he just followed what Bob Kane was doing on Batman. And I think maybe if who knows, if Bob Kane hadn't had that deal in place on Batman, maybe Batman might not have been under that pressure it was in the 60s. Like, you know, the fact that they turned around to was suggesting that, like, you know, 6 months a year, if the sales don't pick up, we're canceling this, because they probably had to give Bob Kane a decent amount of money every month.
Well, the way he was rambling on, you know, I'm pretty sure.
Well, once they've, you know, if you eliminate that, all of a sudden you've got, well, it's ours now. You're more invested in it because you're going to get more money out of it. When you have something that if you're sending someone a check and it doesn't seem worth it anymore, you're going to cancel that.
Oh yeah.
Whereas, you know, if they completely owned it, completely 100% from day one, as they did with Superman, maybe that it wouldn't have actually been in that position, and they'd never have actually released it.
I don't know this, but maybe it also led to them under promoting Batman. That's something I need to check, because basically because Superman was really, really selling very well in the 60s. And Batman was only selling well when the TV show was on. And I'm sure when you look at house sets and stuff like that, Superman was the marquee character.
Oh yeah, definitely. But now the tables have turned in this modern age.
But what brings that about? Like we started out talking about like why things change, not just yes, it's creators, it's editors, but it's also the time.
Yeah, a social change, absolutely.
Yeah, so coming out of World War II, America entering the Korean War, which went on to the Vietnam War. Maybe maybe it was just that desire to have
Contra deals and all that other stuff going on.
Yeah, so maybe the desire to have a brighter, more positive superhero rather than a darker Batman was probably one of the reasons why they sort of like, he's the guy who lives, he lives in a cave, but he's a billionaire. It's you're that connection that you can feel to a character. I think that's, you look at what Marvel did. If you compare Superman and Spider-Man, there's you can see why Spider-Man took off against Batman.
You can also see how they changed Superman in the 70s. Because he became a TV reporter, he didn't wear the blue suit anymore. He looked very fly actually as Clark Kent, and
he wore flares.
Character interesting.
He made flares on. Yeah.
For people that don't know, just for people that don't know, where flares equates to bell bottoms, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
He was wearing an S-Club, because in the 70s, if he didn't wear an S-Club, wow, who were you?
Oh man! You know what? I think we should do an episode like that, dressed up all 70s. What do you?
Why not?
He's gonna call my dad. He still has a safari suit from the 70s.
Oh no!
The long collars.
Oh man! Cool. All you needed was that hat, bro.
I had relatives who had the safari suits, and like,
I saw his face. Like, no, don't bring me back that nightmare.
No. See, I'm still wearing what I wore in the 70s, which is t-shirts and jeans. So,
dude, I've been the same since the 90s. T-shirts, jeans, and slippers. I don't like wearing sneakers too much. People make fun of me. But, hey.
For some strange reasons, orange and brown were popular in the 70s.
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh my god, that was like every household and every item. Because I'm watching old reruns of old shows, and what made them think that brown was such a great color? Made everything look like shit.
Exactly.
Chances are it was something at the time that was probably cheap and easily manufactured. And so they just marketed it as like, oh, this is great, and put it on.
They even had brown cars. That era, brown. Come on.
Yeah.
I remember those.
Oh my God! Now we're dating ourselves here. That's what happens.
Still a lot of chrome on those cars.
Yeah. I even remember having a black velvet jacket.
Oh my God!
Nice, very nice.
For some odd reason, I could see Dave back chilling like a Studio 54 with that blazer on, just hanging out.
Oh, it was like I had a turtleneck to go with it.
Oh man, turtlenecks! Oh my God,
very cool.
Gladly, there's no photo evidence of that. So
see now because since our friend Chris looks so much like Lex, I could see him wearing a blue blazer with a red turtleneck, like Lex had in that presidential picture.
Yeah, of course. I have a red sweater, no problem.
No, I think a cravat is more.
Oh,
I definitely a cravat. Yeah, nice red cravat here.
You know what? If we get at least 20 comments, I think it merits him having that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the easiest Halloween costume for me for Halloween. That's going as Lex. I mean, Lex is a cool dude. I mean, I don't know. Maybe something is wrong with me, but I always liked Lex a little bit more than Superman, because Superman was always the good guy, and he was a little boring. And you had Lex who always came up with these cool schemes, and I think that's also what Grant Morrison picked up on when he did his All-Star Superman, because Lex is more or less the star of this book also. And I thought it's very fun.
I like that book, man. I don't know a lot of people didn't quite appreciate it. I enjoyed the shit out of it.
Well, it's funny. I really liked All Star Superman, and I've got to admit, like a big chunk of that was Frank Quitely's artwork.
Oh yeah, he's a
fantastic artist.
But I will tell you that one of the reasons why I've spoken to a few people who didn't field that like couldn't understand why everyone was going on about it. And somebody really explained it very well to me. And once they said what they didn't get about it, it was like, oh my God, of course. Grant wrote that for fans. He didn't write that for a market outside of fandom.
Yep.
So DC marketed it to outside of fandom. I'm sure it sold well because everyone, oh, it's Grant Morrison, we have to buy this. And it looks great and it looks gorgeous. But all these, but there was all these little references and characters to parts of DC lore and history that, like, for those of us who remember those comics, would like, oh, look, there's that character. Oh, there's that character. It's like, you know, Bannon's back. And no, everyone's going like, who's this? I don't understand what's going on. Like, who's that? What's that? Why are you doing this? Like, huh? I don't get it. And so you come away reading it, like your overall story, you go like, well, no, it was good. And they liked it, but they couldn't understand what was so special about it. And I think it's the thing that often the comics fall prey to, which is, you know, if you appeal to fans on a book like All-Star Superman did, you're going to not catch a lot of mainstream people.
Yeah.
And I think that was, if there was a fault in that book, that's what it was. Like not having, you know, something like a little section in the back, like, oh, well, here's a pinup of this character, and here's where they're from, and this is why they're familiar. Like just telling you who these characters were.
Yeah, it's the same as this Batman, man.
Yeah, I mean everything. See, the thing is, everything is put together by people who are so in on all the continuity, all what's going. Like the editors are in on it, the publishers are in on it, seen it, everyone, the creators, and they're in a room and they're all feeding off exactly the same thing, and they're just presuming and hoping that the audience out there is on the same. You know, they've got all the issues, they've been buying everything, and they're on that same page. And a lot with the direct sale market, a lot of them are there. But unfortunately, these are the sort of books, if you're going to make an event book, make it so that it actually appeals to a mainstream audience. Make a more of an effort to appeal beyond the diehard fans, because that's how you're going to keep these characters alive for other people. Bring people back. I mean, I'm sure people who'd come back to reading Superman who hadn't read a Superman book for 10 years were like, oh, this guy's still around, and this guy, and it's like, oh, I know what this is.
There's the irony. If you take these characters, if you take Superman or Batman, everybody knows these characters. You don't need to explain anything. Superman is an all-powerful alien from another world. Batman is an Avenger of the Night. You don't need to explain these characters to a larger audience. You can write stories with these characters that appeal to a mass audience.
Well, it used to be more than that. It used to be that everyone understood. Like when you talk about Superman, you were like, yeah, he was born. Like literally, most people on the street could actually tell you, yeah, he came from his planet. They might not be able to name Krypton, but they might be able to tell you, yeah, his homeworld blew up and he was sent to Earth as its only survivor. He came here. He's Clark Kent. He's a reporter. He wears glasses. They might even be able to tell you about Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, and he works for the Daily Planet.
And this is exactly the first page from Action Comics #1, because Jerry Siegel explained it all on one page before the first story starts.
Yep.
But if you've seen the Superman movies, you knew that. If you any of the cartoon shows, you knew that. But today, if you ask me now, to describe Superman currently, I couldn't tell you. No. I'm presuming that he's still Clark Kent.
I think he has a son.
The whole world knows that now.
He has a son, or he doesn't have a son. Is he from an alternative Earth? I have no idea. I haven't read Superman in years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I know this. They've got the Super Son and the Super Sons. Like
that's his son. I think he took Superman took a super enema so he could be weakened when he made love to Lois. That way she didn't, that way she could become. I have no idea, bro. I'm just like you. I'm unsure of the current status, but I do know that the secret of Clark Kent has been leaked out to the world. So he's kind of running in the world now with everybody knowing that Clark Kent was always Superman, and that's that. So
he's basically about the universe character.
Yeah.
But you see, look, I can understand See, what that is that's the movie world reflecting back on comics.
Unfortunately, that's one of my biggest gripes. Should always be the other way around. You know, if you could have a little influence, sure, but I get the business model.
Well, no, look, if every movie, they cast a major actor or they're paying someone a lot of money to be Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, whoever. And even if they're not paying them a boatload of money, that actor at some point wants to make sure that people see their face a lot. So, which is why there's always these fights where Spider-Man always gets his mask torn off, always gets it torn to pieces. So the face, you know, Captain America probably spends just as much time without his helmet on as he does with it on. In fact, after the first movie and a half, he stopped wearing it. And
now check this out. I just want to shout out. We have a viewer, comic book poser. Thanks for tuning in. And in regards to the Superman, he goes, well, his son is hella prominent in the new Legion run. However, I just cannot get into any of the current Superman solo runs. They are just rough AF.
Isn't Bendis writing those?
Yeah, and that's he can't get into them. He figures he sees, I guess, more of Superman and the Sun now.
Well, maybe you could ask them, like, ask him if Legion is worth picking up, because I remember seeing some of the ads for it, and I was almost tempted because I thought
it's Legion.
It's Legion. It's not part of it's the 30th century, right? So it's not going to have a ton of crossovers. One of the books I really liked was Keith Giffen and Howard Porter's Justice League 3000. That started off so strong, and Howard Porter's artwork on that was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, Porter's great. I love his art.
Oh, it was such a great looking book. I was just like, again, it's like, give me something that I don't have to buy 20 other books to know to decipher it.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yes, I just went and asked him if he's listening, or she. I don't want to assume. They also mentioned about the 70s topic really quickly. He goes, well, I could name you a run featuring someone that's in the 70s style still. Kingpin.
Yeah.
Kingpin is still stuck in his time. And then he goes, that he thinks Legion is pretty interesting. The first two issues were a little bit sloppy, but the last three have gotten way better.
Okay.
Good to know. Thanks for
rough start.
I might give that a try. I mean, I got my after a couple of Chris's tweets last week.
He made you spend money.
He did. So I bought all the first three showcase books.
Great choice.
Brave and the Bold. It was just flicking through them, and there's I think I think some point, once I've gone through them again, I think we should actually have a podcast just about Brave and the Bold, because so many memories. I haven't started reading it yet. I was just flicking through it, and so many old stories. I'm going like, I remember that. That was such a good story. I think it was such a good story. I think it's also
a good. Brave and the Bold is also a very good book to see where they were going, because when you look at the first issues, they had knights and they had Western heroes and whatever they had in these books, and no superheroes, because when they started out, they weren't superheroes anymore. They were not interesting anymore. And so they tried knights of Camelot age and this kind of
the
stuff.
Atomic Knights, man, Mike came out of that, no?
Hey, I got the Viking Prince collection they did was really nice.
Hubert worked on this.
Yeah,
very good stuff.
Yeah. So I love, like, I mean, maybe they just stopped it because it wasn't selling, or maybe it was, but it seemed very much like Joe moved on to something else, and so they didn't bother finding someone else to draw it. It was just like, okay, well, we'll end it now. We'll end it.
I think he started to work in Hawkman. Wasn't that the case?
Hawkman, or maybe it was just maybe. But it was nice that they decided to just end it. It was like it hasn't. It's not one of those books that where we still today have somebody trying to relaunch another Viking Prince book. Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the Warlord reprint from DC Comics. I don't understand why they're not reprinting that one.
Hold on, just want to say.
Oh yes, Warlord, yeah.
Warlord, yeah, definitely. But in regards to the Brave and the Bold, the last iteration was back in 2009, ending with issue 27, which is kind of a team up between Batman and Dial H for Hero. But volume 1 went 1 through 200, bro. Oh my god.
That's great.
No, hey, that Brave and the Bold run that came through, that was Michael J. Straczynski, wasn't it?
Yeah, on the volume 3.
It was his run was great, because what he did was all of those were self-contained stories.
Exactly, he moved them out of continuity, didn't he?
Oh yeah, no, they were all tight. Like, he was the guy who he did that great was it Aquaman and Demon story that introduced the deep, those.
Yeah.
You're talking about the deep.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember that discussion. That's a great one, actually.
But my God, this run has the first appearance of Suicide Squad, which predates Justice League of America, JLA, Cave Carson, the first Silver Age appearance of Hawkman and Hawkgirl, all right? First appearance of Metamorpho, Wonder Girl, Volko, Copperhead. My God, the first appearance of Wildcat, the Bat Squad. Jesus Christ!
This is the great thing when you go back to the New Frontier by Darwin Cook. We talked about a book for fans. That is going through the history of DC Comics. You have the original Suicide Squad, you have the Challenges of the Unknown, everything coming together in the sequence in which these books appeared, and he puts it all together. It's amazing. That's a really good miniseries.
See, if I was in charge at DC, what I would do is I'd reprint New Frontier again, and then I would have every single DC book spin off out of that. Like, that would be the core. That's like, this is the beginning of the DC
kind of like the first issue special type stuff that came out. You know, those first issue specials were all first issues, and if they got popular, they got spun off. That's where Mike Grell got his start with Warlord. It was a first issue special.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, Kirby did Atlas there. He did Sandman there. He did Manhunter there.
The OG Manhunter came out of that. Exactly. I mean, and then the new Starman came out of that run too. The updated version. I mean, again, you're so right, Dave. That's really missing in the industry. That's something I think would entice people. You know, have a big commitment. You know, here's this book. You could check out the character. Are you interested? And, you know, and if enough people buy, hey. Yeah,
but what you need for this is somebody who creates new characters.
Hey, nobody wants to do it for the majors anymore.
Well, no, it's just like if you create a new character for the majors, that character has to fit in with everybody else.
Yeah, it has to, and that's a shame.
And it's a world that is massively overpopulated. I was hoping that when they reintroduced like the idea of the multiverse again, broke up, that would have been a great way to, if they'd taken all the characters in the DC universe and spread them out over the 52 universes, and then you could have actually done, picked maybe 6 different universes that you deal with on a regular basis. And so you could actually have, Action Comics is Superman on Earth 2 and Superman is Earth 1.
This is, I think, also one of the best ideas of Julius Schwartz when he introduced the idea of Earth 2. These heroes were older, and you could really see how your current heroes would be in 20 years. And I think that's a great idea. They were no longer super gods; they were relatable all of a sudden. They could age. They would have gray in their hair. And he created this idea of legacy, because then you had the younger heroes coming in, Power Girl and so on. That was interesting. A very good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's all great stuff. And you know, I had announced something to you earlier, you know, because we're getting close to closing, because we're about to do a very awesome podcast. But I had mentioned to you guys that we have our own domain, because since we typically concentrate on comic book industry chit chat, I thought, why not? So if anyone wants to check out International Comic Collectors on the Undercover Case Podcast Network, you can easily just go to Comic Book Industry Podcast, and we're definitely going to start looking to get more guests that are, you know, whether they're owners of shops, have worked in the industry, or publishers themselves currently, up and comers, legends. I mean, Dave also has a great idea for us to get into segments for the next couple of shows with the Comics 101. If you want to promptly, a quick minute, Dave, we kind of explain what we want to do with that Comics 101?
Well, I think so many people. I realized after we were halfway through our interview, our chat with podcast with Brian Hibbs, I felt that we should have really set the ground for what it's like to be a retailer, like how they function, their place within the industry, the terms they have with distributors, things like that. So you actually see how much weight and how much of the industry they've been carrying, and really put things in perspective. So I think I'd like to make up for that and just go through the entire industry, like, you know, really putting into perspective who does what, how they do it, what their functions are, and how it all sort of, you know, each different piece of the puzzle. And so that, you know, even coming down to understanding, you know, what it takes if you're a creator-owned, you know, if you're someone who's doing creator-owned comics, what is you're carrying? You know, if you're published by Image, you know, chances are you're not getting any money up front. You don't get page rates. It's things like this. So all of that.
There you go. I mean, that's wonderful.
How you put a comic book together. I mean, this is we all read comic books, but I have no idea what comes first, who does what, when does the lettering happen, and stuff like that.
But it's you know, see, that's the thing. It's always different. Like sometimes it comes, like if you're with a Marvel or DC, it's often very editorial led, whereas with Image it's very creator led. Others, it's case of licensed books, which all has to be approved from somewhere else, and they might even have some ideas that they want you to follow through on. So it's different every time. So, but yeah, the whole process of who does what, when, how, what gets scheduled. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do a half, you know, first half of our show will be our topic. Second half of our show would definitely be something across those lines with a guest, so we can really dig in. And with this, I think we're going to call this a wrap now, because I got to get ready for the Definitive Crusades 100th podcast on the Undercover Case Podcast Network, which I'm very proud of them. Again, I want to shout out Comic Book Poser, CB Poser on Twitter. He's shouting us out and sharing our vidcast, so thank you. Thank you for everybody tuning in and watching and that has commented. And we'll do this. Well, I think I want to do this in the next 2 weeks. What about you?
Yeah. Let's do it over in 2 weeks.
So we're going to do this over in 2 weeks, fam. So Chris, Dave, stay safe, stay awesome. This is the International Comics Collective. I'm Almega, and we out.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe.